Okay, I think I got everything set up properly.
We can hear him.
Yay.
Oh my.
The little feller. It's the bard.
It's me.
The bard.
Excuse me while I don't have a webcam.
Quite a while. We already know you were just some random. What is that?
It's a dog.
Doggo.
The heck?
It's a doggy.
Doge.
Yeah.
Shouldn't you know, Autumn? That's your profile picture, just on fire.
I got it from Bethany. I was like, Bethany, give me that picture.
I am more than happy to oblige and spread the flames of chaos everywhere. So.
Speaking of doges, come here, dog.
You got the doggy?
Yes, there's a dog.
Is the dog
So
somebody we can shoot?
it's interesting about Doge that I just found out yesterday. So I was listening to a meme song that had the word Doge in it, and the kid pronounced it as doggy or doge. So Doge is supposed to be pronounced as doge.
Sure.
Doubt.
I think that
I
child
am pressing Y to doubt.
But
So much
I
doubt.
prefer Doge infinitely.
Also, I think phonetically, for English at least, it should be Doge.
No, stop that.
Yeah, according to
The
Know
problem
Your
is
Meme,
that
it's
different
Doge.
languages phonetics.
Say hello.
Writer chat, we argue meme phonetics.
Is it GIF or GIF? It's GIF.
GIF.
It is 100.
Bethany does not agree.
It is 100% not GIF.
I believe it is supposed to be GIF. The guy who made it
No,
says that it's GIF, but I prefer GIF.
Okay, but if we're going by what the creators intended, J.K. Rowling intended different things for her characters, and nobody listens to that, so...
Yeah, because that's
it's a
Rowling.
Dumbledore
But
comedy.
Now, is this you arguing for GIF right now?
Am I? I have no opinion on this matter. I just will play both sides.
Can I hand you an opinion to hold? Like, where the cursed phonetics, where I don't remember what Tumblr post it was, where they were arguing it should in fact be pronounced GIF.
Yes.
I think it should be pronounced GIF with a silent French E on the end.
I don't think, Bethany... Bethany, I don't think you want to argue phonetics with me.
I don't, and that's why I think you should carry that cross, because I think you would die beautifully on that hill, actually.
The unfortunate thing about EF is that it's been a little bit co-opted by the furries, so I would like to pronounce an alternative fourth pronunciation. Hiss.
Very well.
Yes.
What did you say?
I'm also pleased with this. Oh my.
Is it, Elijah, is this recording?
It is indeed recording. How long? We've been recording for 3.5 minutes now.
Okay, y'all, just so you know, your opinions have been recorded. You cannot take them back now.
Public record, baby!
On the record.
I would not have said
Excellent.
that. You want them to be- Okay, so original intent of arriving here, world building talks.
Lizzy has brought us all here today.
I have, in some strange form and fashion. Oh, also Autumn. I received them.
Excellent. The raccoons.
They make me so absurdly happy.
So glad. When you see someone using a lot of a thing, i.e. Lizzy and raccoons, it's like you see the thing out in the wild, it's like, oh, it's that thing that Lizzy likes.
Well, my friends do call me a trash panda sometimes.
Fair enough. I am a goblin from a family of goblins, so it's not like I have a leg to stand on.
Actually, you probably have two.
Well, I'm not standing on them right now, so.
Okay.
Anyway.
I mean, I assumed with all the contra dancing that you probably had both of your legs, so.
Some days it feels like it's debatable. I get
But
paid
it's
to do cardio.
definitely rude,
Yeah.
Autumn.
I like have seen some things.
Okay, well, I don't have a structure for this. I just figured we would talk and figure things out, or not figure things out, because, I mean, it's not like we can figure out all of the secrets of the universe or writing at one
It's worth a
time.
shot.
Where do you all want to start?
What is something you specifically want to talk about, Lizzie? What is your favorite thing to talk about in this?
Well, I want to know, like, what kind of stories you all write, what kind of, things that you focus on in your writing, just because I know that there was an author's chat, but I was asleep during that because I got home from the Reaper Trail, and I was like, my body was like, I'm going to hate you, and you're going to pass out. So I did. So how do you all, like, what do you all write about? What do you enjoy writing about? What is your theme or like genre of choice?
Yes.
Fantasy sparkles, but make it pain.
Okay.
I have a really long-winded answer, so we should start with someone who is more focused.
We've got time.
I mean, I'm decently genre focused. There was a point where I wanted to write a lot of things, but I got really bored with them really fast. I wanted to do sci-fi. I wanted to do contemporary. I wanted to do horror at one point. None of those was really like it. So I'm now your basic fantasy person. Right, fantasy stuff, pretty much nonstop. And as we discussed at the author talk, I'm currently in the middle of. So there's me.
What was that last part?
Yeah, I didn't hear that either.
I am in the middle of many projects.
You have too many projects? Is that what it?
I do have too many projects, which I thought it was hilarious that the first thing Danielle did was like come out and cut me with that when she's like, "You're in the middle of like 4 things right now, though." So, no, but one first draft that is technically now done, one third draft that I'm only just starting, one anthology of short stories that I want to do, one novella that might happen, and then short story right now that I want to submit to someone else's anthology to get in on the action there. So that's my part. Yeah, it's too many things, actually. Somebody else gets a turn now.
Yes, Bethany writes very entertaining fantasy, let the record show.
Oh, heck
I think
yeah.
I spent a good 2/3 of reading Archibai just chortling.
Makes me feel so fulfilled.
Well, I guess I can go. I am starting. I guess this can probably be considered my first draft of a fantasy novel. I started working on it when I was 15, I think, and it has gone through so many changes, and we're finally to a point where it mostly makes sense. So, we're not very far on the first draft yet. So, that's pretty much all I've written to this point.
You have 10,000 words. That's like more than a little bit.
Heck yeah.
I don't have 10,000 words yet.
Oh, but you're so.
I'm like 500 words short, but
I'm so proud, though. Make me be proud.
Speaking of like word counts and stuff, what are y'all's thoughts on like NaNoWriMo?
Never done it. Too much structure. Got sus, I think.
Yeah, used to support, used to love, got super sketch, left.
What do you mean they got super sketch?
First of all, they made a very loud stance on abortion for no particular reason. Nobody liked that. And then more recently, something that the public eye was a lot more upset about was that there were rumors of like minors' information being leaked in like a really sketchy manner. So
Oh,
it went south, and yeah, a lot of people don't like them anymore.
Yikes.
yeah. I had no idea about that.
Yeah, I don't remember the full details. It was like a year ago that this happened. So now like everybody and their brother is suggesting alternatives for NaNoWriMo that are like another writing challenge that just doesn't support those people specifically. honestly, the challenge was getting a little bit exhausting for me anyway, so it's probably for the better.
Feel that.
For the benefit of the radio, Elijah, what do you write?
I write primarily fantasy. I'm currently not working on draft 2 of my work in progress as I should be, but I will eventually pick it back up again and start working on it again. But yeah, primarily fantasy.
Yes. Unfolding Autumn from the very small seat she's in so she can think straight. There's not enough chair here. For my part, when someone asks, what genre do you write? I just say, yes. Because I had this like spiel in the first author talk video about how like genre is a tool to amplify narrative, which is a long way of saying I'll write anything so long as it works. The last thing I wrote was a really short first draft of a contemporary novel, and right now I'm about for the fourth time or something, I'm like 2,000 words into a fantasy novel. So hopefully this is the 2,000 words that actually gets it off the ground, unlike every other 2,000 words I've written before.
It'll be.
And aside from that, I've worked on sci-fi, I've worked on urban fantasy, I've worked on high fantasy. There's a lot of subgenres to fantasy and fewer subgenres for other stuff. I'm too squeamish for horror, and I'm not smart enough to write thrillers and mysteries, but I'm sure there's an opportunity out there somewhere eventually.
Well, guys, I think I need to hop off. My head is acting up today, so.
Uh-oh.
Gosh, I'm sorry.
That's all right. But I guess since it's recorded, it'll be up at some point.
Yes,
Somewhere else?
I am
Watch.
debating if I should leave the video or not, but yeah, I got both video and audio recorded.
Awesome. Thank you, Elijah.
You're welcome.
And it's nice to meet you. I don't remember what your name is, but it's nice to meet you.
Me? Oh,
Yep.
Yes, you.
Don't worry, she was talking to you. You're the only person here she hasn't met before.
But what is her name?
Naomi.
No, I was going to
Also
say,
a
don't tell
Maryland
her.
person.
Okay, so I wondered that this entire time, and I was like, I don't know who this person is, but hello. Yeah.
That's Naomi. She's Bethany's primary beta reader.
At least she doesn't know that I don't know her name, but now I do.
But she won't until the audio goes up.
Gosh.
We'll have to call you by name really deliberately at some point in the next 40 minutes, just to put that on record. For what's the word? Causing trouble on purpose.
Okay. Yeah.
I will censor every single mention of your name so that she won't know.
Lizzy.
No, I don't want to do that much editing.
Yes.
Person to the right whose name is redacted.
You could just, like, have it be just a long, like, beep as Autumn just talks.
Yep.
Exactly.
Or just a sustained goose honk.
Is there any?
Yeah, like, hold on, like this?
I totally well, where are they?
I found a decapitated goose in my backpack the other day, and it made me really sad.
I nearly ran over a goose in the road the other day, and I was not sorry.
Oh, by Jove.
I was really sorry that it stopped.
To provide some context, I don't keep decapitated geese in my backpack.
What
Garrett would be proud.
ended up in your backpack, actually? Like an entire
What
decapitated.
have I got in my backpack?
This is the nasty hobbits has got in its pockets. A goose.
Goose? Wrong. So I was actually thinking about it finally on the way home this afternoon in the rain and the absence of rain and lots of sloshing on the roads because good heavens, the heavens opens in Abingdon today. I was actually thinking about it finally. And I realized that my relationship with world building is kind of like my relationship with genre, and that it kind of, I do as much of it as is necessary to support the narrative.
Okay.
So like, when I was writing DB, the first draft, it's a really compact narrative. It's like a bunch of dudes in a house and the college across the street and another house. So we only really needed as much world building as would support a bunch of dudes and their house and their school. And then I realized that I do a lot of like economic world building, like where does money come from? How do people support themselves? How do people live? I don't know why. It makes sense, honestly, in my mind, because like that's like the building blocks of our own lives. It's like, where do we get our money? Where do we live? What's our house made of? Are like the normal everyday things that make our lives like more real. So when you're writing about people and you want them to feel like real and normal, it's like, what does their everyday normal look like? What do they do for a living? What do they eat? Where do they work? Well, I basically asked that question already. What do they do for fun? And when I'm building like a high fantasy, like I am with Pirate Wizards right now, I think a lot about geography and how that supports culture and that economics. Because like especially in lower cultures that are lower technologically speaking, you have to think about how the land people live on impacts how they live. Like a lot before rapid transportation and before rapid transmission of information, people were very local all the time. So the near 40 miles is where they got their food, their information, their education. All their economy was basically within that 40-mile range. So you have to think about how that land impacts the lives of the people living on it. So I did a lot of that and I'm still doing a lot of that while researching working on Pirate Wizards, because it's the thing I ran into a lot when I was writing the first draft of DV was I didn't really think about it until I ran into it. It was like, oh, this guy needs a job. What does he do for a job? How does that? What does that pay? Normally, how will it impact his life, et cetera, et cetera. And so I'm kind of encountering a similar thing with Pirate Wizards, is that a lot of the major players kind of establish themselves, and the world building surrounding them has to be kind of hammered out initially. But as they get further into the story, things are going to come up. It's like, oh, what about this aspect of world building? How does that work? And then I have to do some more research.
I gotcha.
Apologies, but now I have to scoot as well because I'm supposed to go and eat.
You're the only person with like money, who's put money where your mouth is, essentially.
You what?
You're the only person who's actually like got feet in the game, as it were. Like you've actually established your world building and put it somewhere. It's not fair.
I thought you meant that none of the rest of us had feet, and I was a little confused.
Yeah, the goose in your backpack didn't have a head. It definitely had.
No, I only had the head.
Oh.
Or was it just the body?
Oh, that's
goodness.
I think I found the head later.
But yeah, I will. If it's going on
perfect.
later, maybe we'll come back in. But I don't think we're gonna go on that long.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Bye.
Just easy, Bethany. Have fun.
Welcome, Willa.
Hi, Willa.
Hi, did I get on right as Bethany left?
Yes.
Bethany had like 30 minutes that she had.
You're balancing out
available.
the 4, so.
Sad.
Yes.
But hey, y'all are cool too.
You're not too bad yourself.
that gonna work?
You missed my entire spiel on economics and world building.
Ooh. I would probably pay a small amount of money to hear that.
Elijah, that is on tape, right?
Well, I'm posting these for free, so you don't have to pay
Oh,
Oh,
come on, man.
shoot.
That was your perfect opportunity to use a paywall.
anything. Nope, you gotta
I
pay
can just-
$50 to hear each talk now.
Gasp.
Per
I said a little bit of money.
That's not a little bit of money, Elijah. Not even in this economy.
okay. $49.
$49.95.
per syllable.
Ooh.
What about a syllable?
A cent per syllable.
That's a lot of sense. It does make a lot of sense, though.
Just hold on a second. I think I need to. Here we go.
Got him.
So what else did I miss besides economics?
Naomi, for like 2 seconds.
A very brief and
Oh.
vicious debate on the pronunciation of GIF.
Ooh.
I maintain that it's pronounced HIF.
Wait.
What?
Say it again?
Did you say hif? Like whiff and stiff?
Like, the breath EG, like,
Oh,
I'm
like
going
a
with
hero?
yes.
That's worse. Honestly.
That's gotta be the hottest take I've heard yet.
I really, really just wanted to cause trouble. Like, like GIF versus GIF is like basic at this point. Let's really throw a wrench in it.
Yes, the classic American need to have a pretty good time. Well, we also discussed like what people like what genres people kind of write in, what you have going on right
Okay.
now. Just so enlighten us.
Me?
Yes.
Okay. I primarily write fantasy, but I love detective fiction, like classic detective fiction. So I have a couple just fiction stories that are, I would not call them classic detective fiction because I'm not that smart, but they are that kind of aesthetic plus a little bit of thriller thrown in there and the like historical feel.
Nice.
Yes, yes.
So when you say classic, are you talking about like Conan Doyle and Christie or like further back?
I would say more Christie and Sayers, like so the kind of think Queens of Crime. I appreciate what Arthur Conan Doyle did for like setting up the genre, but his characters are not ones that I've ever connected with, and his style of mystery writing is not something that actually draws me in that much. So I feel like they were really good for me to read when I was younger, but the older I've gotten, the more I really appreciate like the depth of character and the plot of the more like 20s to 40s, when 1920s to 40s, when that detective fiction was getting written. It's also a lot closer to, sorry, I'm going to nerd out for a minute. So there was like the Detection Club with Chesterton and Sayers and a couple others that kind of came up with like the rules for detective fiction. And amongst those rules was the rule that you have to give the reader all of the clues. You cannot withhold anything. The reader should be able to figure out the killer based on the information that they're given. From what I hear, I've never actually gone to look, but from what I hear, like Sherlock Holmes does withhold some of the information, and so it's not like true in that sense. Anyway, so yeah, I appreciate the incredible smarts of detective fiction, but I would never have the discipline to write a story like that.
Gotcha. Yeah,
Yeah.
that is something that I've noticed with Conan Doyle is that he will set up his stories and it will make sense when Sherlock Holmes gets to the right answer. But in his explanation, he gives the details that you were never given. So like someone comes in and he's like, I know that you're from this back road in Scotland because that's the only place where there's like red dirt. And you're like, wow, it would have been really helpful if you had told us that in, the beginning of the story. Now I just feel like an idiot.
Yep. Yeah. And that's the interesting thing, like reading Christy, like as you go along, they will notice these things, they will tell you these things, and you have all of the information, you're seeing the exact same things they're saying, and you still are flabbergasted by the ending, usually. All right, so I think I pretty much know what everyone else here writes, but y'all can reiterate if you want to.
We already hashed that out.
Okay.
It's like basically what we talked about in the first recording. Fantasy here, fantasy there, fantasy there. Yes.
Nice. Well, I will have to move into distracted mode now because I have to edit. So I will have one earbud in listening to y'all and the other earbud listening to my
That's incredibly gutsy. I could never.
If it works. Yeah. I'm on the stage where I'm putting clips on the timeline. So I've got the music in one ear and then I'll have y'all in the other ear. So we'll see. Yeah.
Willa, are we, which ear are you hearing us through?
This one?
The right ear? So we need to be the good angel rather than the shoulder devil.
Aw, man.
You sure you don't
Wait, do they have assigned shoulders, or is it based on the color of my earbuds?
I believe that the right shoulder is for, those who go to the right, and that would be, the angels or whatnot. And then like the left is assigned to the goats and the devil or something like that. So.
They call in Old English, it's Sinister and Dexter. Sinister hand and Dexter's hands.
Mm.
Ah, yes, Dexter, my favorite hand.
Makes me feel very targeted, incidentally.
Yeah, what happens if you're left-handed?
Yeah, really. Apparently, if you're Catholic, they try to beat it out of you.
Oh.
Yeah, I think I have multiple friends that, yeah.
Willa freeze framed on a really distressed for just long enough. I thought she was being
I missed it. I was looking down at my phone. I was trying to look at pictures of the the shoulder angels.
Just gotta look up that GIF, the GIF from Emperor's New Groove. No, you gotta wait.
Yeah, I was looking at Kronk actually.
Studio C shoulder angel, they stress me out, but they're also hilarious.
It does worry me from their backs. Like, they're not getting any younger. Let me find the angel.
There it is.
Yeah, I'm looking at the clip from the Emperor's New Groove. The angel is on the left shoulder for some reason, and the devil is on the right. At least in one clip.
No, the angel is on the right shoulder in one of the gifs, but he's on the left shoulder in the other gif.
Yeah, I think it switches inside the movie. I'm not sure because I'm seeing like hearing pictures.
I'm hearing very pronounced gif and gif.
He's gonna lead you down the path of righteousness. I'm gonna lead you down the path of rats.
Okay, let me find some of the questions that I initially asked.
Excellent.
Yes.
Guided conversation.
Yeah, we've already been recording for 32 minutes. And so far we've only covered like 2 topics that actually related to writing.
But it's all in good fun.
Yeah.
Here,
I mean, the first one that we did, we recorded for like an hour and 40 minutes.
Mm-hmm. And that was really unguided. That was really spontaneous.
Yep.
I'm gonna put it in like the specific like chat for this, whatever it's called, call. Okay. So when you're reading a book that you really enjoy, what are the details that you feel make the world and that make it feel real to you? Do you get that when you read, or do you always kind of think in the back of your head, this is, the basis of this is fiction and this doesn't feel real anyways, so why would I look for that? Or do you find details that, or either that you're writing or that you're reading about would think about, or how it would affect them? So I know, Autumn, you said that like economics affects everyone in real life, and so that would affect like the characters that you're writing. Where do they get their money? Where's their next meal going to come from? Is that something that you like look for and that you notice when you're reading?
When's the last time I read something substantial? I think so. I think the power of fiction, I think, lies a lot in subtlety. So it's one of those things that you shouldn't have to look for, but you'll notice a lot when it's not been kind of worked on.
Okay. Can you explain that further?
What's it?
Can you explain that further?
I am literally pulling every word out of my sleeve as I say it. If someone isn't thinking about how someone gets their money, who makes their food, where do their clothes come from, their world building is going to feel shallow.
Okay.
It's going to feel like basically everything's being pulled out of the air. But if someone's like thinking about it and trying not to be like really obvious about it, it's just going to feel like natural. Like they don't have to explain, oh, this is where their money comes from, this is how they make their food. It's just they know where it comes from, and so they can just demonstrate it as opposed to having to explain it. Because it should feel natural to our narrators if our narrators are familiar with the world that they're living in. If we have someone who's kind of an outsider who's learning about the world as we are, that's different. They're going to have a lot of those questions being answered on page all the time. But if it's someone who's walking in their own world, it should feel as familiar to us as it does to them.
Okay.
I keep going back to Steve Potter because she's one of my favorites, but in the Scorpio races, they don't really do a lot of obvious world building except in the aspect of except where it directly informs the plot. There's some like lore and mythos that the character's learning about on page, but it's set on a fictional island in the North Sea off the coast of England, and they don't talk about it. They talk about America, they talk about the mainland, they talk about getting on boats and going somewhere else, but they don't talk about the name of the island or where it comes from or who settled it. It is just there, it's theirs. And the economy is actually really well established. They have butchers and bakers, and they did not have
makers.
bakers. They did not have one of those, but they could have. They have a little rattle trap cars, and most people on the island do not drive cars. They have horses and ponies and pull carts. The one nice car on the island belongs to the priest, inexplicably. There's actually a joke about that in the book. It's like, we don't know where the priest got his car. We don't ask.
Is that like extortion or?
It was a donation. It was a donation.
Like taking of church funds or? Okay. Good.
It was a donation to the church, and I don't know if she established where it came from. It was really funny on page, but I haven't read it in a bit. And she kind of goes into loving detail about aspects of the economy because it's run by people that the narrator knows and has grown up around. So like they're old. The businesses are themselves old friends, and so the narrator loves to treat them as such. But it's not like how does it work? It's who are these people and what do they do, and why does it matter? Because it does matter. Autumn circles randomly back around to character because everything always does. But yeah, I think a lot of valuable world building is just done in subtlety. Just like just kind of treating things as a given. So like you have to know and you have to be confident in it when you're writing it. But I guess the rule of show don't tell would apply.
Okay. That example of
Here.
Oh, sorry. Come again?
Sorry, I'm complaining about my share again.
That not mentioning like the name of the island, but the geography around it, or like the different lands, reminds me of, I know there's a nation that we have documents of, but we have no idea where it is. Like they talked about ancient Egypt and like the Middle East. I think it was Punt. We don't know where Punt was because they were just like, wow, we're important enough that no one will ever, wonder where we are because we're Punt. Mm-hmm. And then, they got taken down quite a few notches because we have absolutely no idea where they are.
Something. Look ye upon my work, see mighty in despair.
Ozymandias, I see.
Quite fond of it.
What about thyself, Elijah?
I am still thinking. Yeah. One of my favorite series is the Mistborn series, and one of the things that it really hits on is like the mist and the fog during the nighttime, and there's this urban legend among the working class, which is called the Ska, about this ghoul or ghost type creature that lives in the mist, and they are very superstitious about going out during the nighttime because they believe that they're going to get taken away. So that I think that makes the world feel real, like it has its own internal stories and facets that make it more alive.
Okay. So, would examples of that be in like another story? Would that be like folk songs that people would know, or like things that are developed in like their culture that everyone knows and that the community is kind of built around?
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, and
I read something.
Oh, go ahead.
I read something once. I think it was an analysis of like How to Train Your Dragon 2, where it's talking about the song that forgive me, I can't remember their names, but Hiccup's parents know, and that dance, so they know, and it talks about how like deep the world building goes there, just because that's something that their community knew, and that was something that they could all participate in as either like a family or as friends watching said dance, and that that's always stuck out to me, is that kind of what a culture would know and how that would make them interact with each other and make them interact with foreigners who might not know those things.
Yeah,
I feel like someone talked about that at one point, was pop culture as world building is really important. It's like, it's not just where their food comes from and how they make money, but what songs do they sing, what dances do they do, how do they make art, what stories do they tell when they're weaving baskets, etc.
Yeah, does the world actually feel lived in? Like, do these people actually have their own personal lives, or do they enjoy doing things on the weekend or as a community? Like, for instance, like you said, folk songs. Those are excellent. Yeah. Yeah. And my in my current work in progress, I have, so the sun never sets. So how do you deal with that, with like sleep and such? Well, people sleep indoors, and they have something called soul shutters. So they are these windows that are near the ceiling of any particular room that light comes in. And when you don't want light in, you just shut it, and the room becomes pretty much pitch black. So that kind of thing. incorporating the way people create architecture along with the way the environment of that world works, I think makes a world feel lived in as well.
Agreed. When I really like Avatar: The Last Airbender, so when I think about like high quality like background characters and things like that, that's kind of what my mind goes to. Especially
My
like,
cabbages.
my cabbages, and I can't believe they remembered my birthday. And then,
I love that.
airship,
Such a good bit.
your focus is on the main characters, but in almost maybe not every scene, at least there are people that aren't important to the story, and yet they still exist. And it's not that the characters, like the main characters, pick them up and then put them down when they don't want them anymore. It's that, yes, there are genuinely thousands and hundreds of people in this world. And sometimes they're idiots, but sometimes they're fantastic. And I love that. I love that it's lived in not only for the people that we're learning about and that we care about, but also for the people that just make us really like laugh. Like the guy that's standing at a post, but it was supposed to be a person, but the animators forgot the person that he was talking to, so he's just crying to this post. I love that so much.
Interesting insight, especially when one is writing like crowd scenes, like battles, or like I have a scene in a ballroom at the end of Pirate Wizards that I have to write eventually. And the idea that everyone in that room has a thought and a motivation and a response to whatever's happening. Like all of those responses and opinions are going to inform the entire unfolding of the scene, and there are so many to keep track of. On the one hand, that could be intimidating, but also that could be like really exciting to realize that any one of these unnamed people could be the linchpin of a scene, just because they all have something they want to do and they want to see done. That's really cool. And I have to think about the ballroom scene again. I am several 100,000 words. My gosh, I hope not. Several thousand words away from that ballroom scene, and yet I'm thinking about it already. Something normal. People.
Pirates, or do they kind of clash with each other?
So the characters are pirates. A couple of them happen to be magic users, so they are pirate wizards. Or wizard pirates. Actually, in the world building, there are classes of magic user. Anyone who uses magic is called a magician. A trained magician is a mage, and then a really accomplished and powerful mage is a wizard. So, but pirate wizard sounds more fun than pirate mages.
I gotcha.
And I didn't know that when I didn't know that about the magic classes when I started writing pirate wizards. I just knew that they were magic people.
Well, if any of the pirates like fire, then they could be pyrotechnics or pirate techniques.
It's wizarding time! Fireball!
That's all the room is. I said I cast fireball.
You're a wizard, Harry. Well, you're a Harry wizard. Okay, let us see. Well, are there any other thoughts on that specific topic of the small paragraph of things? Is that a I have more?
No.
Or is that a haha?
I think we're good.
Okie doke.
I don't think I have anything more. I don't think.
All right. What about you, Willa?
Willa is listening very carefully.
Yeah. I think all I'll say is that I think one of the things that really helps a world feel lived in is being introduced to people in the characteristic moments. Like if a character is walking into, we were talking about Harry Potter, so this is what made me think of it, but like when he's walking, through Diagon Alley for the first time and he walks into the shops or he meets the people there, every single time that he interacts with something new, he's being introduced to it through a characteristic moment for that thing, which makes you feel like, oh, this person already in motion before Harry got up to them. And they were already, like, the world was already set in motion because you're coming up and, you know, I do not remember the scenes in Flourish and Blots. Like, I don't remember what it was in the book, but I think in the movie, like, he walks in and he startles the guy and the guy, like, falls off a ladder, or something like that. Anyway, just things like that where when a character walks into a new environment and the new environment is already in motion and there's already things happening and he interacts with the new things in that characteristic moment. I don't know. I'm not explaining this well because my attention is very split, but
I love
kind of
that.
thing.
I'm writing that down.
Sorry.
Yay, I said something useful.
The world is already in motion before your character enters it. I love that.
Yeah. Thus concludes my thoughts.
They are fantastic thoughts.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. So when you're writing, do you look at the big picture or the small picture? Do you focus on your main characters? Do you focus on the world at large and how it affects your main characters? Oh gosh. What is your focus?
I've already had a thought about this, so I think someone else should go first.
Okay, so I guess me. What is the exact question again? Where is it? Do you look
Maybe
at the
another way to
picture?
think about that would be: do worlds typically come to you first, or do characters come to you first, and you build the worlds that they live in?
Okay, so I think with me, since every story that I want to write so far is within the same universe / multiverse type thing, most of the settings for the worlds come first, and then I have to decide what characters I want in those stories. And in terms of looking at the big picture or the small picture, I have a way of so I'm a what's the word, a pantser author. So it means that I just write on the go. Like I write the story as I come up with the story as I write it. So I don't always have the end goal or the middle set in stone before I start writing. So
you have like a block of things that you're kind of chipping away, and you're chipping away, and what you'll find at the end is like a complete story.
yeah, but it's more like adding on. So I begin with a skeleton of what I want the story to be like. I have a general vibe or general thing that I want to convey. And then I put onto it muscle, sinew, stuff like that. And then I overlay it with skin to make it look and read good. So I begin with a general premise and then I start building off of that. So in terms of big or small picture, I'm looking at the big picture, what the overall arc or story is going to look like, and then I start focusing on the smaller details. And that would mean characters will have to come afterwards. They would have to fit the story that I want to tell.
So if you have like a goal that you want to accomplish in the story, like a quest that needs to be done or something like that, you would build the character's story around what would get them to that.
Can you say that one more time? I want to make sure that I understand that.
if for the story you have like a main goal, say you want to go like fight a dragon, would you create
Yes.
a character that has the motivations to go and fight that dragon? It's not that they're being pulled along by the story, it's that they fit into it, or
Yeah, well, when it comes to something like motivation, if I want to have a story that deals with someone trying to overcome fear, I would want them to initially not want to fight the dragon, but they will have to eventually because of the circumstances of the story, whether it's like a chosen hero thing or the village or town needs someone and they're the only capable person. Or if I want to, in the words of Bethany, cheese grate them.
That was mine. Thank you.
I,
explanation.
So. This is a thing I said during the Tuesday one that you were asleep for. Danielle asked, "What is your favorite thing about writing?" And we all went around the room talking about things. And I says, "My favorite thing is taking a character and putting them through a cheese grater."
As in like emotional pain, or
Yes.
like
Yes.
I literally like putting them through meters.
The cheese grater was a stand-in for the concept of the crucible or the refining pot.
Oh,
But cheese grater was what I thought of in the moment, and it does sound very funny, so that's what I took. There was more to that thought, but that's the crux of it. The character, the cheese grater.
okay.
Yeah.
That is so concerning. Oh my gosh.
That's why they call me the word criminal. Because I commit word crimes. You've been struck by a word criminal. I'm just gonna keep playing until I can actually get you to crack.
Okay. Thoughts from you, Autumn or Willa, as long as they're not word crimes.
I want like a word criminal like bat signal.
I
for
think
when a
it should be
character
like
just
one of
really
those
needs to be cheese
word-
grated.
You know those like word clouds where like you plug in a bunch of words and like it's like a big salad of words.
Yeah.
It should be that thing. That should be the spotlight in the air.
Word crimes. That's what I do. I commit word crimes and I don't know things.
The font for the signal should be Comic Sans.
Yes.
Indeed.
We need to get Justin on this. I think that Justin would have a lot of power in this situation.
It should be a sticker.
What was the question you asked?
What was the question you answered, Elijah?
It was the
small picture.
Yeah, let me bring it up. I answered the do you look at the big picture or small picture? So I
In
guess
what
if you want
aspect?
to.
Well, I've slept since writing that, so. Would you rather focus on the story at large or the characters within the story? Does the story kind of come from the characters, or do the characters kind of come from the story?
I would say that the story definitely comes from the characters.
Okay.
I do a lot of finagling to fit the emotional beats that I want to hit with characters. And so oftentimes the world gets built around that, which is why fantasy is wonderful. Because you can make it do a lot of things.
So I talked about this a little bit earlier, that my relationship with world building is kind of similar to my relationship with genre in that for me, it is a tool used to amplify the narrative. Okay. So it really, world building comes secondary to the characters in the story I'm trying to tell with the characters. And that I start with a character, a dynamic of characters, and the story gets built around them, and then the world is built around the story. With DB, it was, 8 guys in a house, and one of them is in a terrible relationship that he needs to get out of. That's the whole thing. So where's the house? How do they pay rent, et cetera, et cetera? It's built around what the narrative needs to be driven.
Do you build like a Russian nesting doll?
Yeah, kind of. It's like, and then in the center of it is a little guy, and the next shell is the cheese grater, and the next doll, got him, is the world, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, for me, a lot of plot just starts with the cheese grater, and then everything goes from there. With Pirate Wizards, what, you finish your thought?
I had the thought of, what if God like based our lives off of what cheese graters he would put us through, which I'm glad he doesn't do.
I'm very grateful for that. The refining pot is hard enough, bro.
I mean, it's
really
the purpose
the
isn't like
refining
that.
pot.
How hard am I going to make this for you? It's I love you. It's you're a person, not the things you go through, not the trauma I'm going to inflict upon you.
That's why they call it the refining pot.
I personally hope that I am being zested, not cheese grated.
So you want the skin zested? Oh no!
Just, I don't know, something about this
That
zest
and all
of
my
life.
impurities being skimmed off the top and then built up into something pretty.
No, that is not what I meant by zest. I meant zest for life.
Oh no, I'm still leading into the refining pot metaphor.
Oh,
Yeah.
well.
My thought was just like you're being like zested like a lime.
Yeah, well, I mean, the whole point of zesting is to get the essence of a lime. So really, I'm wearing my essence on my sleeve.
Like the essence from the orange and the lime comes from its skin. You're not leaving it in.
It's just minor scrapes and scratches. It's not that big of a deal.
It's
I
like
think
being
this-
alive, Elijah.
I think this metaphor is getting out of hand when I cannot give it my full attention. The dangers of doing metaphors with half a brain.
I do that all the time.
Bold of you to assume that I even have a brain.
Oof. You just formed words, so yeah. I mean,
Yes.
like
I have one brain cell rattling around in my head like a DVD screensaver. Bing, 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 bing.
you're the Chill Howie meme.
Speaking of brain cells, that's my cue for caffeine.
Okay. What would be some like really great big picture moments from a book that you've read, and some really like great personal, like small ones? Where did she go?
I think there was a thing in her house.
Still here.
I am putting the Jill Howie in
just
the chat.
muted.
Oh, well, fair enough. That's what I thought.
To like big picture examples and like small details that you've really enjoyed and things that you have read or written.
I feel like there was something I read recently that was like, that is so there, but my brain is not there.
I'm trying to think of one too. Let's see. I think like I grew up reading Ranger's Apprentice. I don't know if
That was
any
good.
of you. Yeah, I love those books. That's really what got me into fantasy and LARP, and then storytelling from there. And as I've gone through the books and gotten older, I love the first book so much, and I love the other books for the stories. But I feel like the characters become less and less of less and less a part of the story, and more something that brings about what the author wants, which feels a little strange just because of the way that it started out. There was so much character growth.
I think also they were written for people who are a lot younger. So as we get older,
I mean, I've aged a lot, so
we're more aware of things. Because I read them when I was like 13, and then I went back and tried to read them when I was like 19. I was like, what?
I mainly like listen to them, so I don't have to like actually like read through them all. But I feel like the first like 6 books were incredibly solid with the storytelling and the characters and the things that happened, and then it kind of went downhill from there. But one of my favorite things that I was thinking about for a big picture in those books would be when one of the like young men, I think he's about 15, 16, has to face this warlord, and it's in front of a massive army, and you get these kind of almost small snapshots of him facing the warlord and the decisions that he makes in the split seconds. And so those are really good small details.
But then you have
no, I'm thinking of when Horace or Horrence or however you pronounce his name.
Oh, it's the desert one.
No, not that one either.
Guy. There's too
when
many.
he faces Morgareth, the Lord of Rain and Night, and you have like both sides, both armies, kind of what's going on with all of them. One is just basically like a literal mindless horde because they're being mind controlled, and then you have the, for lack of a better word, English, because that's where he took all of his world building, was real places that you wouldn't have heard of as a child. Because I mean, did you know what Scandinavia was when you were like knee high? Because I mean, I knew that like Norway existed, but I had never heard of like Scandinavia or like the other things that he calls the nations. But
yeah, a lot of his world building analogs do not hold up once you know geography.
Yeah, it really makes me sad. Like the Genovesans are like they're not Genevans. They're one of those like really like, cutthroat Italian cities. It's like always fighting with Florence that I can never remember the name of. Maybe it's Genoa. They're Geneva. Geneva is in Switzerland. Genoans are Italians, I think.
That makes sense.
I need to find that.
But yeah, the desert and the poorly veiled analog for Japan are very
Yeah.
In that sense, the war sequences from The Queen of Atolia by Megan Whalen Turner. There's several chapters in the middle of The Queen of Atolia, which is the second installment, where you're just getting these overarching views of 2 countries at war, and they're talking about troop movements and blowing bridges and stealing cannons and all these things, and it's like kind of a love letter to world building in that sense of this author knows so much that she can talk about all these things happening from the lens of probably someone reading notices from the front lines.
Yeah,
she's it's just the narrative kind of switches back from it goes from this very intimate one-on-one with the 2 main characters to what they're thinking about and the world around them as they're kind of huddled up in a castle and their soldiers are going to war. And that was a really interesting section because the first book is its own whole thing, but the books 2 through 6, I think, are all about war and politics and kings, and they are really cool for that sense of she talked a lot about the political maneuvering and the economics of moving armies, and it's very, very cool, actually.
What was that called?
It's the Queen's Thief series by Megan Whalen Turner.
I'm writing that down. Also the Mistborn. I like that, what you said, like missives. I know Jane Austen did like, she wrote her book Lady Susan, which is an absolute riot. And it's all through letters. Between the yes, epistolary. And I like when there's almost like a break, and you get something like that from the outside world that the character is experiencing.
Multimedia narratives are just so very, very cool.
Like the letters that the girls get in Little Women from their father.
The entirety of Bram Stoker's Dracula, which is, it's a multimedia novel. So it's journal entries, letters, newspaper clippings, I think a train timetable at one point. No. Mina references the train timetable. She's a train. Doctor's records. It's so cool. There's a thing where someone arranged all the entries of Dracula, all the chapters of Dracula in chronological order because they're all dated, and they send them out as emails. It's called Dracula Daily.
I've heard of that.
It's so cool, and it's like a really easy way to read through Dracula at the same time that they would have been experiencing it. Basically, it's like you're getting the day by day, blow by blow of our good friend Jonathan Harker versus his very weird business trip to Pennsylvania. It's really cool, and the novel itself has proven through 2 or 3 readings to be really, really fun.
That reminds me of how people would like wait at the docks for Charles Dickens's like next installment.
Yeah.
Of like the Old Curiosity Shop and things like that. Where it would be like, okay, you know, we're experiencing this almost as a serial, whereas we pick it up and we, you know, read it as a book. You know, which makes the Bible interesting in another way, that, you know, we get to read this collection of letters, but it's multiple letters being sent to people over time, or multiple writings that are being compiled, like the Psalms goes from like King David and gosh, what was his name? Moses. Oh gosh, I just forgot Moses' name. Yes. And like the Sons of Korah. Like we read all of those things as a book in its entirety, whereas that's, you know, multiple authors over time.
Yep.
And I guess too, I'm a little biased towards that almost mode of thought, or that way of writing, because most of my writing has happened in that kind of context. With my LARPing group, that's pretty much what I've done most of my writing in. I didn't really write as a kid. I mean, like I wrote like short stories. I found something the other day where it was like a zebra in the desert has a fluffy pair of shoes and it gets stolen from him by like a weasel or something like that.
It sounds very Kipling.
The story is you shouldn't scream at cotton candy trees. But I mean, I wasn't really a writer kid, but when I became a teen and when I found my people, so to speak, I was drawn into this world, and almost as as myself, but also I got the experience of seeing a world as a character through their eyes, and adding to a world that was already created. So it felt very natural. And most of the writing that I do now is in tandem with people. So my friend Kyle, who you met, the man with the sword, Autumn, who did not win in the battle that he wished to have won. He and I sat down at one point because in the new world that we were creating, our kingdoms were right next to each other. So we established how my people group got to where I was, because I was on, my people are on an island and his people were the coast off of my island. So we just established, okay, where did my people come from? Where did your people come from? What were the locations and like the buildings and the structures that were already there? What drove my people to get onto that island? What did you do to my people? And how did you, like, when I had a mass exodus from the mainland to the island, what did you do to the people that were left behind? How did they get absorbed into your culture? Where was I going with this?
Unconventional styles, like things written over time and in a lot of different structures, as opposed to just traditional prose.
Yeah. So it's it's more of a body of writing that multiple people have contributed to, which is a lot like life, I suppose. But it's not like I'm writing the whole story. I'm writing a part of the story that gets interwoven with other people's stuff, which I really enjoy. So,
if you haven't read Dracula yet, you really should. It's really cool.
I have not. Yeah.
People misinterpret it a lot in like popular media. So like, there's a lot of cliches that come from Dracula that don't really reflect it. It's
pretty much. Isn't it just like a vampire who lives in a coffin? And
no. It's a guy who goes on a business trip and meets a vampire who's trying to make a foothold in the new world. And this vampire locks him in his castle and runs away, and he has to break out of the castle and get back home to stop the vampire before the vampire makes a murder ground of England.
Oh my god.
And he enlists his fiance, his best bro's fiance, and a kooky old doctor from Amsterdam, I think.
You always need a kooky old doctor from Amsterdam.
He's an absolute unit. Dr. Van Helsing, who's also constantly misinterpreted by popular media. He's usually portrayed as like a big strapping dude. He's a kooky old guy. He's a professor. He's so great.
It's like the Ember Island players version of Toph.
Yeah, a lot of Dracula adaptations are like the Ember Island players version of Dracula.
I love this so hard. This is a new headcanon.
Yeah, and the
Popular
main
media
couple are actually really healthy and respectful, and like it's actually, I think Bram Stoker was either Christian or writing in a Christian culture enough that a lot of it is very Christian in like culturally. Like at least the main characters and a lot of the supporting cast are like vocally using the name of God reverently and trying to like biblical, like acting biblically, etc. Which is really, maybe because it's old, but it was super refreshing.
It was really refreshing because I don't know, in media these days, especially anything that has like dark characters like Dracula, they have this kind of flippant attitude towards the holy things, like, oh, your holy water can't hurt me. And like, what did you think it was going to do? I have seen this many times. But the cool thing about Dracula is, no, the holy things in there, you know, they use the crucifix and holy water. And, you know, it's not actually about those things. Like, they're more representative, but they actually do hold real power over darkness. And darkness actually does fear it. And like Autumn said, it was super refreshing.
Yeah. Very much would recommend Dracula. And it's also got some really neat world building, incidentally. I think Bram Stoker was really excited about writing it, and he had a lot of ideas, and some of them are misguided. Like, his entire relationship with America is hysterical. He's got a cowboy from Texas as a character.
Oh,
He's so, like, he's like a Japanese caricature of American culture in anime. It's like so, it's hysterical. But he's like, we're visiting Transylvania and we're taking riverboats and traveling by horse. And one of the main characters is really, really enthusiastic about train tables. The intricacies of the British Post. It's, we have secretaries and doctors and cowboys and real estate agents. And it's got so much going on economically and culturally.
That is amazing. Is that written about the time? It's like the same time as Mary Shelley's Frankenstein?
I don't know.
I think it was a couple decades after Frankenstein, but I could be way off on that.
Okay. Okay. Well, do we want to move on to a next question, or do we? Are there more thoughts?
Oh, I had a pet peeve to mention.
Okay.
One of the things that makes me feel like a world is not lived in is the place names for things. don't actually roll off the tongue. They don't actually feel like something someone would say on a daily basis. If your place name is difficult to pronounce or just awkward or obviously made up, it just does not feel like something that someone would force themselves to say, you know, for hundreds of years of history. So that's just a pet peeve of mine.
Like, especially considering like the place names we have in real life. Like, where Willow lives, we have a bunch of names in Spanish and German that have been botched over time to be very, very rural Southern.
Yeah.
Like Herrenwald, which everyone pronounces Owenwald.
Yeah.
And my personal favorite, I live there, Bon Aqua. Like, the way people say things and the way people choose to call things is so, like, organic and ridiculous, and trying to be highfalutin and use fancy names for things that aren't, like, things people would actually use. No one's actually going to say that every time.
One of my pet peeves for that is when you have like the very clearly like fantasy name, and then you have like the really clunky like name. So it would be like I don't know, like Rumpelstiltskin, and then you have his brother Chad. That just that's not a real example. For instance,
No, you could not have picked a better name combo than Rumpelstiltskin and Chad. I love that.
Like, that just like yanks you right out of the story so hard. Maybe to laugh, like just laugh hysterically, but also just like you read that and you're like, there's no way that these kids were like, you know, this doesn't feel real. It's like naming one child Annie and the other child like River or something like that, like an inanimate object.
But yeah, that is like, people have chuckled about the naming conventions in Dune recently, because you have Gurney and Duncan Idaho and Johnny and what's the other one, and Paul and Leto and Jessica.
Okay, let's see. Up to the next question. Okay, so would you, if you were writing about like a city that your character has to be in, are you going to focus on like the vibe of the entire city, or are you going to focus on small parts of the city, like the architecture or the layout, or smells, sounds, sights, cabbages?
Cabbages.
I feel like in order to communicate the small things, you have to be confident in the bigger ones.
Okay.
Like, I would want to know, I would think, but I would want to know kind of the layout of the city, like where things go, where the major economical centers are. Kind of what the general, is it all one style of architecture, or has it been built up over time in multiple styles of architecture? Where does the traffic come and go? And then you can start thinking about, where are people safe to play in the streets? Where are the children playing? Where are people playing music at the windows? Where are things being sold, and where are people living? Are they the same places? I had a scene written in a city some year and a half ago that never went anywhere, but it was kind of they enter the city and they have to go up to the stronghold, and they're going through, all these little side roads and main thoroughfares, and encountering the castle guard, and they're encountering traffic and all those little things. Like, you have to be able to like be confident in how everything gets there, to be confident in the little manifestations. It also more likely than not smells like fish, mud, and manure.
Especially if people are just taking their waste and
depending on how old it is.
This is why we have umbrellas.
Okay, that's a question I have for you guys. I find that when authors spend time trying to explain how people dispose of their waste, or brush their teeth, or like kind of like basic hygiene things, to a certain extent, when they like spend more than maybe a sentence at the most on it, I find that it totally takes me out of the story, because I'm like, A, I don't care about this. B, it's gross. And C, I wasn't actually wondering if people had bad breath because, they weren't brushing their teeth because they live in a, pre plumbing society. Like all these things, like it totally takes me out of the story. So I know there's like, and the more realistic type literature that you write, the more I feel like people feel like they have the need to explain those things, but like I'm not complaining if those things get left out. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think that if it matters to the narrative, then you have to think about it. But that if it doesn't matter, why are you talking about it anyway?
Yeah. Like, if you were going to describe in like thorough detail to me every single thing that Mr. Collins does to be obnoxious, I would get so sick of that. But the fact that he's like he's so generally smarmy and like a weasel covered in gel that like it doesn't become annoying and it doesn't feel out of place and like it's being worked on too heavily. Ooh, who is this?
Fuzzy Duckling!
Hey, Sam.
Mantha.
He's just generally smarmy and like that's an overall vibe for him. We don't have to go into the depths of the smarm. We just have to deal with him.
It helps that like we have to provide examples. Like we can't just say he's smarmy. Like it has to be demonstrated. But for Mr. Collins, it's mostly through his dialogue and the way he behaves toward other people. It's not, oh, this is how his hair is super awkward and weird, etc., etc.
Aw, Sam, we wanted to see your face too.
It's not like he has, like a cowlick and like, his hair is filled with gel and like you're just like, ugh. He's gross, but like he acts
He's so terrible.
in a way that makes me very angry, which means that he does their job very well.
There was a homeless guy in the subway earlier when I was getting dinner. And I saw him when I came into the building, because like, he was there. And he kind of had this look in his eye, this like a little bit wide-eyed manic. He was like, and I was like, not looking at that. And then as I was getting my sandwich, he kind of shuffles up behind me to the counter, and I'm like, is he just here to get a sandwich finally? So I'm kind of not looking in his general direction. He says, "You both have brown eyes," referring to me and the girl behind the counter.
Oh man!
And I look at her, and we're just like, I hope was the mutual agreement stare of guys are strange, men are weird. And he just like made a couple of like random weird and very bold comments, not like bold as in like vulgar, but just as in like very forward, and then just wandered back away. And I looked at her, I was like, strange men in restaurants. I didn't say that, but I hope I communicated it with the shape of my eyes. And then I just kind of went my way, not looking at him again. But there's like the energy of a guy who you do not want to like be mean to, but he is definitely not being socially acceptable.
I liked the way that you described that though, because we got the gist of what you meant without having to have all of the small details of the experience. On a side note, that reminds me of how I met one of my close friends. I was pulled into the room with her, and then I was immediately told that we were delivered by the same midwife, and our eyes just locked. Like, see, Randy, hey, you two should get along because you were delivered by the same woman. That's cool. And we both just locked eyes, and we were like, we're never gonna talk again, right? And like it was a mutual like thing. Like, no, nice to meet you. Bye. I don't want to ever see you again. And then like a year later, I was in her wedding as a bridesmaid. So it was like so, but just those very strange parts of life. Out of curiosity, what were some strange like games that you played with your siblings in childhood? We had the who can tie the tightest knots and escape from them fastest game, which we would only play when my mother was out of the house because we didn't want her to think that we were weird. But I was not very good at escaping from knots, but maybe that's because my siblings had like 10 years of experience on me and my brother was Boy Scout, so.
Between 4.5 years and 21 years older than all of my siblings, so we didn't have a lot of games that we could play together. There was too much of a gap. And I was too neurotic in my defense, and in all fairness, I was not a very play with the kids sibling.
My sister and I would play My Little Ponies, but very different version of My Little Ponies than the movies.
Naturally.
Oh, yes. I mean, we had a whole town. It was lovely. But we also had the My Little Ponies were on the slave market at one point and had to fight for their freedom.
Sheesh.
And, well, yeah, from the evil overlord, I think she was the mayor. We had a little Belle, like from Beauty and the Beast figurine. But this figurine was as all get out. She did not look like Belle. So she was the bad guy. And she had a very dumb brother who was played by the male Polly Pocket that we had. And so he kind of like inadvertently would help the My Little Ponies to escape from their slavery.
Did any of you?
This is just classic girls playing with dolls, though.
Oh yeah.
Autumn, did you either of you have like all of my characters are going to be in an orphanage phase?
Oh yeah.
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm glad that wasn't just me. Elijah, was that something that you did as a child in your writing? It was like, man, you know what would be great? All of my characters have dead parents.
I think something. An easy way to explore, quote unquote, easy way to explore the childish notion of what if I was just on my own and had to figure it out myself. And I want to be making all my own choices, etc., etc. Because there's a lot. It's really common in child and middle grade fiction is the characters on their own and they're orphaned or neglected or whatever, and they have to, do all their own problem solving. Coming of age
stories.
Right. That's it.
Yeah.
What were you saying, Elijah?
Yeah. In all honesty, I am a child when it comes to writing because I didn't actually start until like 5 years ago. So I don't actually have any childhood stories, but there is one story that I've been developing for like 10 plus years already. It's gone through so many changes, but it's mainly stayed in my head. As far as parents go with that, two of the main characters in that are actually orphaned. So and they're separated at that when they become orphaned. One goes into an orphanage and the other one gets kidnapped by a cult. So yep.
This sounds interesting.
But the other two characters are full-on Greek gods. So they technically still have their parents, but Greek pantheon families are kind of dysfunctional, so you can see how they won't like. Yeah, you can see how they technically wouldn't like their parents, but
Ah, yes. I chopped up my father with his own scythe, then I threw him into the deepest pit of hell.
He ate my siblings.
Sounds like an average Thanksgiving.
On like a cycle, this is kind of a rabbit trail, but I wonder on a psychological level if reading stories about children who are on their own make kids more independent than reading stories where like there's not a lot of pressure for the child. I'm thinking of like Betsy and Tacy, or Betsy Tacy by Montheart Lovelace, which I read a lot as a child. It's two girls. They come from really good, really solid families, and they kind of get up to hijinks with each other once in a while. And then I'm thinking of like My Side of the Mountain, which I loved as a kid, which is where this boy from the Catskills of New York runs away and he lives in the forest for a year by himself. It's not that his family is bad or anything like that, but it's the challenges he has to face and the logic that he has to use to stay alive in that situation. So I kind of wonder what's more beneficial to kids in the long run. Is it that?
I feel like there are important aspects to both, but I believe that is actually part of the wrong button. Part of the point is the narrative where a child has the child is their own agent, because they're written with their primary audience being people who have no agency apart from their family, apart from the adults in their lives. So a lot of young children, especially in today's culture, are effectively being kind of shunted from place to place and having opinions forced upon them by the adults in their lives. And having a narrative where they are their own agency is kind of the point, where they have to do things on their own. They get to do things on their own. They get to be the man. So it's not only is it encouraging people, kids to, solve their problems and to figure things out, but it also it's a little bit of a power fantasy of I get to make my own choices, which I think I have a lot of opinions about literature in which the children are effectively abandoned by all the adults in their lives, because that also is a big deal and a common issue right now, especially. But I think literature that empowers people is part of the point of literature. Whether that is, hey kids, you can have agency too, or I don't know, whatever the other thing was. But also there has to be literature that reminds us that not all the grown-ups are bad, and there are people in your life that care about you, even if a lot of grown-ups like to push you around and tell you what to do.
Can I posit a third option after
Yes.
you go? You go ahead.
Who are you pointing at?
To?
Right, pointing doesn't work. I was pointing at Lizzy.
Oh gosh, what was I saying? Yeah, I mean, I think that literature in general, like storytelling, literature, anything that is written, is an amazing tool because you get to experience and learn from something that you're never going to have to make a mistake with. So, for instance, you would probably only benefit from dialogue that you're reading, because it will teach you in some way on how to speak, how to think, without having to. If you were thrown onto Earth and you didn't have any sort of like outside source from reading as you're growing up about different cultures and anything, and then you're thrown suddenly into a very different culture, you're going to make a lot of mistakes, which can be very hard to make. But if you've already read about a different culture, or if you've already read about where you're going to end up, then you already have assets that you get. You already have something that you've learned from. And I think that if you lack something, then books and stories are incredible. So, for instance, I'm thinking of my bookshelf. I lack grace and humility a lot. So reading stories about people who struggle with those things and overcome them, that can be so helpful to me. One of my favorite books is Penelope Wilcox' The Hawk and the Dove, because it has helped me to identify things in my own life that I do and pinpoint faults and then work on them without having to have some sort of major explosion in my life. Which, I mean, those things could be very beneficial, but also incredibly detrimental to real relationships that you'll have with people. So learning from an outside source is fantastic.
Really, really. Lewis talks about in one of his essays on literature the idea that literature is a window into someone else's life and to learn things about the world without ever having to leave your house. But basically, it's like,
Okay. Oh, sorry.
through literature, you have an opportunity to learn about so many, places and people and cultures and ideas that you might never have been possibly exposed to in your life.
Yes.
And it's miraculous. It's wonderful. Well, what was
Okay,
your
well,
I love everything y'all just said. I was going to posit a third option for kids and taking responsibility. I think, like Autumn said, there needs to be a lot more books where the parent figures are a part of the child's life and integral to them learning to take responsibility, because that's what parenthood really ought to be, which is you are teaching your children how to be individuals, how to take responsibility, how to be agents in the world with agency. And I definitely would like more of those sorts of stories in the world, because I think even for people who come from a background where they don't have, especially for people who come from a background where they don't have good parental figures in their life, I think it's really, really, really vital that they see that, no, this is possible and that it is something to strive for, and that with, each generation it can get better by the grace of God. So, yeah.
Yeah, like having the strong mother or father figure that is actually there for them, whether it's a like a mentor figure or their actual biological parent.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Agreed.
having more of those is very good, especially for children reading it and for the parents that may be reading the story to them. They can learn from the story how to be a good parent.
Yeah. Okay. One of my favorite stories that does this really well is, did you guys ever read The Princess and the Goblin?
is that McDonald?
Yes.
I remember you telling me about it, but I've never read it.
Okay. Yes, I have gushed about this a little bit. So George MacDonald, who was a huge influence on Lewis and Tolkien, he wrote The Princess and the Goblin. The sequel to that is called The Princess and Curdie. And Curdie is this minor boy, and he has a whole character arc through this sequel to the Goblin. And his parents are fantastic people that spur him onward to fulfill, his calling and what he's supposed to do in the world. And I loved it. It was really good.
the dad character in The Queen's Thief? Bethany and I were yelling about him the other day. Hector, what a guy! It's hard to talk about him without spoilers because his role is so integral. But his relationship with his son, who's the main character of the story, is just he is such a bastion for the main character, and he's not. They're both adults, so it's not like, here, son, let me hold your hand and guide you, but he's constantly looking to his dad for advice, for guidance, and just that reassurance that someone is there.
That's awesome.
And it's sometimes a little bit ridiculous because they're both adults and it's sometimes the story's a comedy, but but it's good.
And I was trying to think of examples of books I've read that have a good, strong parental base. And the one that my mind keeps on going back to is To Kill a Mockingbird with Atticus.
Yes. Oh, yes.
He is not only like respected by the town, but he's respected by his children. And he gets to have so much more of a role in that book than he would have had. I mean, I think he's a whole lot more impactful because he's a good father, and you get to see that. Than if he was just, described as a good man. You get to see his goodness not only as a lawyer, as someone who will fight for what he believes is right, but also as a father. I think that's important.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of books I've read that have a strong father figure in it, and I can't necessarily think of one.
It writes too much daddy issues literature.
That is, yeah. There are a whole lot more good motherly figures than there are good fatherly figures, which I think exacerbates, real problems.
Also, something propaganda. A lot of the West right now is leaning into an independence, a separating from our mothers and fathers, and separating the mothers and fathers from their children. It's like,
bless you. I mean, stop.
Strong familial relationships are not normal and not mainstream right now. So they're harder to come by a lot.
Yeah, and if the parents are around, they're kind of shown as ridiculous and stupid and just always shutting the kids down and like, not going to let you have any fun, not going to let you do anything.
Which I think does reflect a lot of secular culture revolving parenthood. It's something I've heard a lot recently from secular circles is that a lot of those people look at having children as like a step you take in your life and not a calling and not a life like responsibility. It's the next thing you do to achieve that social check mark, not this is a person you're entrusted with bringing up and tending to an immortal soul. That's not how they think about it as a rule. So the relationship of like non-Christian parents to their children, and even sometimes nominal Christian parent to their children, isn't built in that capacity of and that sense of responsibility and care. Yeah.
Well, because if you're only giving your kid half your attention, they're going to notice and they're not going to respect you or trust you.
Yeah. And that reinforces the idea that their need for care is not important to other people.
Yeah, and I think that can kind of feed into the sense of wanting independence in a child.
Awesome.
And I think with writing stories about a child becoming more independent, we have to be careful and showing them that becoming independent is about maturing and becoming more about the person that you need to be and not about getting away from your parents who are supposedly keeping you down.
Right, because independence is not defined by not having authority over you.
It's taking on the roles that your mother and father have currently.
I'm trying to think of like a really good, strong relationship between a father and a son in literature, and my mind is blanking. And that actually kind of worries me.
Again, the father and son, then the Queen's Thief. We haven't read that yet, and that's okay.
Does Hamlet count?
What's it?
Does Hamlet count?
Isn't that where my father's ghost appears to me and now I must kill my uncle? I mean, he wants him to murder someone.
He wants
hey,
to
but
be
there's
avenged.
a strong bond.
Hang on, I'm switching headphones real quick.
What about the king from Macbeth and his son who gets called an egg and runs away? What the heck?
She's changing earphones.
Little egg! Stabs him.
My favorite line from Hamlet is, "Oh, my prophetic soul." It's so applicable to life. Anytime something happens that I was like, instead of saying, "I told you so," that's what I say.
My grandfather he used to have this cat we called Mr. Kitty. I don't think he had an actual name. He was just Mr. Kitty. My grandfather would kind of like personify his voice, and he would say, "Oh, bless your little pea-picking soul." And that's stuck for years. So sometimes that's what I'll say instead of I say, "Oh, bless you, bless your little pea-picking soul."
If we are still discussing good relationships between fathers and sons, I would like to present to the council Elrond and Aragorn.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Mm.
Being like, Elrond was not Aragorn's biological father, but he was raised in Elrond's house, functionally as Elrond's son. And that relationship built Aragorn into the man he was in the book. Less so the movies, let's be real. But in the book, what a Chad.
I'm his brother, Rumpelstiltskin.
Thank you, Liz.
I'm never gonna forget that.
Can someone write, I don't know, short story, a ballad or something about Rumpelstiltskin and Chad, his brother?
Sure. This is not a question that's on the list, but it's made me curious. So for Willa and Autumn, what is a story that's helped you grow as a young woman, or as a woman? And then for Elijah, what is something that's helped you grow as a young man? You've like found helpful in literature or in storytelling.
That's a really good question, Lizzy.
No. The short answer is that my relationship with gender has not really been reinforced or de-enforced, I guess, by literature. Like, I've definitely matured as an adult and had through my relationship with literature, but nothing like really as a woman.
Okay.
Like, reading the Bible as an adult has definitely reinforced my relationship with being a woman, but not so much mainstream literature.
Okay. I guess I don't words.
Mm.
The eucalyptus has completely taken my words.
Oh no. How dare the eucalyptus?
Yeah. I mean, like, more as an adult, I guess. But yeah, I mean, also with like,
yeah,
man, this makes me really think about this aspect of being a woman. Yeah. Like walking a mile and so much, I guess.
Yeah. I've not had that experience with literature.
Okay.
Maybe
something that's helped you grow as a person.
That is a whole spiel.
We can do both. We've got time.
Yeah, I can invite Willa and Elijah to speak on it first if they have something more substantial to say, or something actually closer to topic.
It's loading.
Oh, where's that GIF of the seal? There we go. This is how I always feel when I have thoughts processing.
I want to see it. I'm gonna go see it.
Justin.
Holy cow! It's Justin.
That profile photo.
Okay, so when it comes to stories that have helped me grow personally as a man, um, I I can't tell if this is something that has helped me to grow or it's a what I view as a good example of like coming into proper manhood. What I think it would have to be the second book of again the Mistborn series with Ellen's journey from being a normal not a normal the an average nobleman to an actual king, because in that he at the beginning of the story he takes on the role of king, and he has like a partial monarchy with a parliament of sorts that vote to kick him out. And later on in the story, a mentor figure who ironically is a woman comes in and starts lecturing him about him basically being soft and that he needs to take charge and take back his kingdom. And as the story progresses, he learns more and more about what a king looks like and how he should act, and he eventually gains his kingdom back through that. So yeah, the Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson.
Another book to add to the list.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's already in the Mistborn trilogy, so I think it's already on your list.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep.
I need to find a copy. I think a story that's helped me to grow as a person. I'm trying to think of a good example of one that would help me have grown as a woman. Is definitely like the Wing Feather Saga. I read that a lot growing up, and it's one of those stories that's like really good and really intriguing as a child, and then as you grow up and you can go back and you can reread it, and it's more, if not, it's just as good as you remembered, if not better, because there's so much more that you can see. But I think following the main character, he's really struggling with being an older sibling, and that's not something I'm ever really going to experience, just because of my place in the lineup, so to speak. But he wrestles with growing up, and the responsibility that you take on with that. Just going through the process with someone in literature, growing and assuming responsibility. And even though it's not something that you might necessarily want to do, it's something that you have to do, and something that really shapes you. So.
Yeah, that's a really good example.
So something that I'm actually kind of aiming towards as I work on my own writing is to kind of write the kind of women I think I would look up to when I was younger, or as I'm growing up, is like the kind of woman I want to see in literature, something to aspire to, or something to look to and grow and learn from. The main character in Pirate Wizards is a princess, and she's the crown princess. So she's spent her young adult life kind of with this expectation of being a ruler, which in the eyes of her people is a very masculine role. And she's had to kind of dial down a lot of her own femininity and kind of even ignore it in this expectation of what she's supposed to be. And the goal is, over the course of the story, to help her realize her own femininity and kind of embrace it and get to be actually be a woman as opposed to like kind of live under these expectations of having to erase her femininity for what she's supposed to be. And there's another that I haven't really fleshed out yet, but the concept of someone whose power is tied to their home and the place that they create, the place that they build, as analog for the power of a homemaker.
Oh, heck yeah.
Oh, that's fun.
I call it a hearth mage. Someone whose power is tied to the home that they build. And she's going to have her own story later on, but it's going to take some fleshing out still. That's not something. My relationship with being a woman has been something that I only got to like kind of lean into as I got to be a real adult. So a lot of the literature I read when I was a kid, I mostly read about. I read about boys. I read about young men kind of growing into themselves because they had kind of the narratives that I was seeing in my own life, looking for independence, kind of growing into yourself, all that stuff. But,
They tend to have more interesting stories.
Boys tend to have more interesting stories, and I think that is a sad lack in adventure and fiction of girls can be girls and still have cool stories, which is something else I'm hoping to supplement as I work on my own stories. But just in general, one of my favorite things in literature is kind of reminding the reader what it is to wander, as in WONDER. Like, what's the line from Santa Claus in that really weird DreamWorks movie, Rise of the Guardians? Their eyes are so big because they're full of wonder. It's kind of that sense of being delighted at being alive.
Yeah.
And in that vein, one of my favorite novels of basically all time, and something that I go back to a lot, is this really weird, messy novel called Sinner by Maggie Stiefvater.
Oh, bless you.
Was that an acknowledgement of the very German author's name? Steve
No,
Vater.
sorry. It's a very barky Oliver Twist.
Dog. It's a fantasy novel about a young man who is a werewolf and a washed out pop star who is on drugs because he does not know how to be alive. And the course of the novel, actually, no, he's not on drugs. He's sober because he's found that being a werewolf is like drugs, but better.
I'm sorry, what is that?
He's figured
So
out.
we have to let the thing out. Drugs but better as a werewolf?
Yeah. So, what's the way he justifies it? There's no mess. There's no no hangover. It's not killing anybody. At least about himself. It doesn't cost money. It's not illegal. It's turning off his brain, which is what he wants, but it's still hurting him because he's still turning off his brain because he doesn't want to be in the world. He doesn't want to be alive in that sense. And the novel is about him going back to kind of where he got his career kickstarted and going back to all the places he left messy when he was not sober, and trying to remember what it is to enjoy being alive and choosing to be alive, choosing to love being alive. And the other main character in the novel is the woman he's trying to woo, who is also kind of experiencing this frustration with where she is, her own situation, how to enjoy her life. And they're kind of growing towards each other and also towards their own conclusions. And it's messy. It's a very interesting book, and both the title characters and all everyone around them very much lives up to the title of Sinner. But it's kind of visceral in just the journey of remembering what it is to enjoy being alive and enjoy the created world and everything in it. It's kind of like The Martian. That Sinner by Maggie Stiefvater.
Oh my, that is a German name.
it's I'll take it. I'll put a picture in the chat. I have a very old copy. I got a old dingy copy I got of thrift books ages ago. I'll put it in the chat because Steve Vader is a mouthful. There's a couple of chapters near the end where the main character realizes that there is despite trying not to exist in the world, he is making an impact, and it's a good one. And sometimes whenever I just go back and read the book, that specific sequence makes me cry like a baby every time. It's so good. It's kind of like, for me, it's the end of The Martian, where he hears a human voice for the first time in like a year and a half.
Is that a book or is that a movie?
Both. The movie is so good. The book is so good. The movie is fun for that part because you get to watch Mark Watney, the main character, just start burst into tears when he hears a human voice for the first time in like a year and a half, 2 years. But the book is also just very, very good. It wasn't a growing book. It's just a book that grew on me.
I gotcha.
Yeah, The Martian is about space, but it's also about the connections between people and the effort we will go to keep our own. It's about a guy who gets left on Mars. And the entire planet teams up to get him back.
An introvert's dream and an extrovert's nightmare.
And, like, there's a reason that solitary confinement is described as cruel and unusual punishment.
Yeah.
No human can function in those conditions.
No.
Right.
Man, y'all have provided me with a great book list for the summer.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I guess going back to that question, I can't really think of a great example of literature that's helped me to grow as a young woman. I think it's more, as I've gotten older, I've met some really fantastic role models, people that I look up to, even if they're not in my life very much, that I respect. And I'm, it's kind of like man, I feel the safety that you kind of exude, and like the peace and the graciousness, and I want to do that. And how do you get there? And a lot of what I found is that comes from knowing the Lord very well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like my borrowed older sister, I don't know her mom like super well, but I know her by like, is the word proxy?
Yeah.
Like second hand. But
yeah.
I know her from I know her from the space that she's created, the home that she's created, and the atmosphere that her children exude. I may not have grown up with her or know her incredibly well or have had a lot of conversations with her, but the peace that I've had from her home and from the children that she raised just speaks volumes to me about who she is as a person. I really respect that.
That's really great.
Yeah,
those kind of women are amazing.
Yeah, and I think I would have to agree that I can't think of any books that specifically shaped me as a woman in a specifically female sense, but I mean there are lots of books that have just formed me in the sense of how to be a good person. And I think the books that really do that for me are ones like Autumn was talking about that remind you what it is to wonder and remind you to look up and look out at the world, but also to really dive in and notice the details. One book that I read, I think it was 2 years ago. I don't know if any of y'all read Piranesi by Susanna Clarke.
Still haven't read that.
Oh, it
I've
is
heard of
a
it.
masterpiece.
I know that it is a good book.
it is a great book. And the main character in that, he is just fascinated by the smallest things in his world. And you as the reader are getting to experience his just complete abandonment to this wonder that fills him. And it was a really beautiful reminder that, you know, we're surrounded by so much stuff all the time that we can forget that each of those things, you know, from the smallest leaf to, I don't know, the glass of water that you're drinking, whatever it might be, those things in and of themselves are, you know, like if you took the time, you could really wonder at them for a long time. And sometimes it's something that you should do. So like becoming re-enchanted with just how intricate the world is and how beautiful it is. I think when I was younger, like way younger, this might be a generic answer, but Anne of Green Gables was like a really good example to me of that.
Gosh, yes.
Quintessential literary femininity, actually. I loved that series.
I love Anne of Green Gables.
It's good. And I think the thing that really impacted me about her character was that she wasn't afraid to just say the thing. Like she would see a beautiful sunset and she would gasp out loud and then describe the sunset as, you know, oh, it is, you know, gorgeous in this way. It makes me think of, you know, the highwayman riding down or whatever it might be. I cannot think of an actual example in years. But like she wore her wonder on her sleeve and she was not afraid to just express it. And she wasn't held back by being embarrassed that she was having those sorts of thoughts. And so that's actually something that I really appreciate about like my sister Emma. The two of us, like if we're driving in the car somewhere and might be having this really involved conversation, but if there is like a pretty field that we pass by or like, you know, mist on the horizon that we come up over a rise and we see it, we will both like stop everything that we're talking about and be like, oh my goodness. And we'll just drink it in for a minute and then we'll keep going.
Dude, I drove through some absolutely gorgeous sun showers on the way home today. Like you came over the hill and it'd been pouring and then you just can't go over a rise and come down again and it clears up and the sun just hits the windshield. It was glorious.
Ooh, or like where there are the glory rays, where there's just that one patch of sky.
Yes.
And so you can see the light coming down and hitting that one spot.
Yes.
But it's also still raining. It was amazing.
I guess,
beautiful.
Man, Anne of Green Gables is really a great example. I think that that series has also helped me. Maybe less like as specifically a woman, but growing as an adult and being able to see that wonder. I don't think I related to her because she was a girl. I think I related to her because I was like, ooh, kindred spirit.
She'd be proud of you using that.
Okay. Another great example of a character that wonderful and teaches you really good things. Eustace Scrubb.
My boy!
Yes.
Oh my god.
So the thing about Eustace is he and you know Edmund does this too, but Eustace is a lot, I don't know, I think he's even more relatable than Edmund is in that he went from being this really dorkily terrible person to humbly, you know, repenting of being a dorkily terrible person that doesn't see the wonder of the world. And then once he repents and, you know, he changes back out of a dragon, he full-heartedly embraces everything about Narnia. And that becomes his life. He's ennobled by it. And he doesn't like just kind of like, you know, say he's sorry and shrug his shoulders and then go back to doing what he was doing. Like he fully embraces the thing that he'd been missing all along. And I think it's really easy when you're a human being and you find out that you've made a mistake to like repent, but then not really fully lean in the other direction and like fully embrace what you had been against because like you're too embarrassed to really like remind people that you used to be the other way, if that makes any sense. by like doing the opposite now?
I was trying to find my copy of Dawn Treader. It's not on my shelf right now. As a caveat to that, though, I love that one sentence, or maybe it's a paragraph that Lewis has, after Eustace stops being a dragon, where it says, his problems weren't fixed immediately, but day by day he grew and he got better. And that is so hopeful to me. Man, I love that.
Yes.
Have you heard?
And I think. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. Have you heard Sarah Sparks' album of the Narnia characters?
I was going to mention that. I love those so much.
I do too. They're so beautiful. Did you pick up in that song the themes she has that are like drawing correlations between? Oh wait, I'm sorry. That's a totally different song. Never mind. I was thinking.
As you were.
Glum's Anthem.
I love Puddleglum's Anthem.
Yes, yeah. And the correlation it has between Puddleglum and Peter. Peter from the Bible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just thought that was a super interesting connection she made.
I was listening to that this morning on my way to work, and it suddenly hit me that was a comparison between Puddleglum and Peter. With the crowing of the, I can't remember the word that she used for it.
Yes, yeah, and then warming himself by a fire and like the fires of Harthang.
Yeah. I traded I traded his love for the light of a fire, and I traded his love for a lie. Along those lines.
And then, Justin's back.
Yobaseo.
Hey.
He lives.
I'm back.
It's 2 squares. Oh.
Hey,
There he
he's in his
is.
office now.
I'm in my office.
The classic Purdy move. No, it's not, is it? I was like, oh, it's got to be. Nope, it's not ice cream. Sadness.
Is that cereal?
Yeah, it's cereal. Ice cream is one of the many things I'm not supposed to eat, actually.
That is so sad.
Right there with you, bro.
I just saw a bowl of welcoming brown substance. Thought, oh, it's the classic Purdy move of showing up to an event with a pile of ice cream.
Wait,
I would like to. No,
you call yourself
usually I'll do that.
cow, but are you lactose intolerant?
Maybe.
What the heck?
Among many other things.
Biggest plot twist of 2024.
Do you have beef with that, Lizzy?
There are 3 Elijah icons in the chat. Is Bethany back?
Hi.
Bethany's back!
Hey.
Hey.
The
Like a
crew
bad
is all together again.
I don't have any beef with that as long as the cow doesn't have any legs, and I have a lot of ground beef with that.
Wah, 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 wah.
Well,
I need to put my coffee down.
Coffee, Mike and Mikey, is 9:45.
Well, it's been great, and we're not even done with the questions.
We have been recording
going
for
around in very
2
pleasant
hours
circles.
and 40 minutes. That is an hour
Excellent.
long
The
more
whole
than our
time?
first
Having-
talk.
The time of our lives.
Look, this is going to make a really good pseudo podcast later, okay? I'm going to listen to this at work and just giggle the entire time.
Oh, good.
I thoroughly enjoy re-listening to the author talks because it means that I get to listen to all the stuff I wasn't listening to when I was trying to run my mouth, and it's great.
Yes, exactly.
I was rewatching the Tuesday one recently, Bethany, and I finally saw the moment you're talking about where you were talking about chaotic children and me and Samantha both looked at each other. I remember pointing to her because she knew what we were talking about. but I didn't realize it was such an obvious. We both like looked at each other. Like there's a full blown
bond,
swivel of
man.
the head there. Like we physically
heads
pointed
rotate
towards each other
downwards.
before.
Here's the Spider-Man meme.
It was
basically.
amazing. Yes, there was a chaotic children. But yes, it was a beautiful thing.
Who left?
Lizzy.
I didn't leave.
But you could
It's turned on my camera.
No, she didn't leave.
Oh,
Oh,
Willa said she left, but she'll be back. Hang on.
hello.
Willa, come back. Oh well. But yeah, I listen to them at work. It's kind of like being on the phone with somebody, except that they're not actually there on the phone with you.
Except that it's
So like the author talks and blends Subaru episode I have saved is like I want to hear a person.
The fact that the 3 Elijah icons, 2 of which are on fire, is like building a Doge pyramid just gives me life at the moment.
So I was going to mention that.
Yeah.
beautiful.
Helmo.gif.
Precisely.
Writer's chat now featuring cattle. I love that. Whoever put that in there, bless you. So we have a cow, a lizard, and a raccoon in the chat. Everyone else want to show themselves up?
There we go. Let me also introduce my other favorite Helmo, because the party one is a more specific mood.
Yes.
Ah, happy
Raining
birthday,
Hellfire,
Elijah.
You're happy.
That was when I finally got Naomi to read domestic violence.
What?
Precisely.
Oh yeah, she doesn't know about that.
So, okay, so domestic violence is the working title of my drafted novel.
Okay,
because
so
it's
there's
literally about domestic violence. Oh no! Look, it's not like I don't know I have a brand. My brand is guys being dudes, but they're traumatized. That's my brand.
Lovely though.
Honestly, the title speaks for itself. It's really sad, but it gets better. So yeah, Naomi read it in like 2 evenings, and she spent most of it crying on my couch. It was amazing. I felt so powerful.
It was a darn good time, bro.
That's great.
It was amazing. We were just sitting here doing our thing, and occasionally Naomi just goes.
There's just like an
And I was like,
extremely loud sniff from the couch every so often.
I was like, take a shot every time Autumn makes Naomi cry. Die of alcohol poisoning. It was a very good time. Very aptly summed up by the Helmo with the party hat gif.
Yes. I was talking about that with her the other day, and I was like, I really hope it was not hurtful how much I was laughing the entire time, but I could not stop myself. It's just so dang funny.
So much. Yeah, I'm gonna have to write the second gif.
About causing other people emotional pain. So gratifying.
I'm gonna have to write the second draft now so I can introduce the beta readers.
Wait, then what am I?
I need to finish the first.
You're like an alpha. You're like you, Naomi, and Justin are like elites. Yes. The people who read it before I realized it could be 2 drafts.
I will take anybody's work and be like, but like, you could sell this though.
The power it will have when it is a fully realized novel, bro.
But like, imagine this 5 drafts later.
Which
imagine domestic violence, but fully realized. Anyway, yes.
Are you
Whatever you were saying, dear, keep saying it.
Something that you've written, or like imagine domestic violence, because that's just sad.
Domestic violence is the working title of a novel. It's just called that because it's punchy and it gives the trigger warning up front.
Ah, fun.
Well, Skyboats isn't called Skyboats either. I mean, there's a trigger warning.
Yes. So Autumn's working title novels are Domestic Violence and Pyro Wizards. Bethany's is called Skyboats. They just kind of give you the brief summary up front. There are skyboats, there are wizard pirates, there is domestic violence.
So when you say skyboats, is that like a boat that's in the sky, or is it like the skyboat song?
It's actually both, because I originally knew I wanted there to be actual boats in the sky, but then one of the first things I discovered to put on my novel playlist was the skyboat song, like the, what is it, Irish, Scottish?
Scottish.
So it's kind of both.
Heck yeah. Bonnie, Prince Charlie, and whatnot.
Yeah, the problem is that I'm not even good at regular naming books. So if I don't have a regular name, I just have something stupid like Horse Story or Skyboats or name of central character, or, you know, the one where there's a character who's not at all based on a duck from Kung Fu Panda, you know?
Force 3, the one where Archer and Wick have a bad time.
That's the same one. Wait, which one where Archer and Wick have a bad time? I thought there was 3 of them.
Good point. Does Scorch 3 have a more specific working title yet, or is it still just Scorch 3?
Here's the thing, because back to the aforementioned Bethany cannot title books. I have a title, but I haven't liked it ever. Because
That's fair.
Title currently, yeah, its official title currently is Burning Skies and Other Fuss, but I don't like that either. It's not. It fits the theme, but it is not correct. So I don't like it.
It's back.
So we need to find the name, quote unquote, needs to find the name that fits the theme, but also makes Bethany happy.
Yeah, that is an absolute.
Which I think is a very important. I think it's important. Very important thing about writing a novel is that it makes you happy. If you're not happy about a thing that you've made, exactly.
No, finish your thought. I need to know what you were going to say.
Was I saying a thing?
You were.
The last thing I remember thinking about was Archer and Wick have a bad time, part 3. That's all I got.
Like, what if I named the book that? Just say. No, but like as far as titling things goes, since I hate titling things, my current go-to plan with everything is, what if I just gave it the stupidest possible name that will amuse me and will sell books? So that's what I'm doing.
I mean, robbing centaurs and other bad ideas is iconic, so.
I was so incredibly proud the day that I mentioned that I had titled the book on Twitter, and somebody was immediately like, if this was selling right now, I would buy it. I was like, okay, so I have the right title.
Very good, very good.
Satisfying.
Figuring out how to title domestic violence so it actually has like a working title is gonna be fun. Because like, yeah,
it just sounds so wrong.
I've gotten so used to saying it.
And I don't mean like it's a you'll never amount to anything, but it's just like every time you say that, I think it's supposed to be funny, and then my brain is like, no, that is not the right emotion that goes with those words.
That's a very good point. I've said them so often that it feels a little trite now, but the impact is supposed to be there.
Okay, so it's not
it's
like
supposed to be like a raise of eyebrows. This is not a ha ha. This is not a oh ha ha domestic violence book. This is a oh yikes.
So we got to get him out of there.
Get him out of there. Yes, thank you. Emotional damage.
Introducing other favorite homo. Aggressively close homo.
I wonder if I have a reaction gif for that.
I have an array of homos at my dispense. Like, if it was not already somebody's bit to be homo, it would be
I'm just dropping the y'all song, finish the y'all song again.
Well, we are on the topic of Elmos. Can I ask what the murders poor innocent Elmos tag is?
What was that? That was spring
Oh.
2021.
Yeah.
Did it have something to do with
so-
bullying Caleb Martin?
Yes. I don't remember what exactly happened, but I know that I do have that role. I think I did post
It might have
a
been
GIF
something
of the
about
helmet.
throwing.
I remember there was a period on the Discord of people just posting gifs of like Tickle Me Elbows being destroyed in very violent ways. That's the only context I have for
Oh
it.
yeah, that's right. I believe I did post a GIF
Is that
of
the whole
like
thing?
yeah, someone getting like a desert eagle and just completely blowing up a Tickle Me Elmo.
Oh my
Like
gosh.
no, you can search the GIF library for Elmos being destroyed, and there are so many choices. Okay.
It is
That
amazing.
reminds me, this past summer, I was studying abroad in Scotland, and at some point during the trip, someone bought a Peppa Pig hand puppet and would bring it with us on our excursions. And one of my favorite moments was we were in the basement of a castle, and there was this like mock kitchen set up with like the fake food that's like in the midst of being prepared, like when you walk in the room, and over the hearth there had been a pig that was spitted, so they stuck Peppa Pig onto the spit with the other pig, with like the fake flames behind it, and that lives in my head rent free.
No, 100%. You are correct.
Beautiful. I distinctly remember there was a GIF of Elmo in the box packaging, like getting Jotun off of like a Toys R Us shelf, face down onto the floor.
Yeah, that's classic. Hang on.
Oh my gosh,
That's not even the worst one.
that is
This is the Jotun one that you're looking for.
Yes, that's the boy. Yeah.
No worries.
This-
You can always find a meme.
the gif of Elmo being lit on fire reminds me of, who was it, Diocletian
Okay.
and the human candles.
Yeah, definitely.
In that good old first few centuries of the early church.
Yeah,
Good
I never would
times.
Yeah.
as a martyr.
It was the best of times. But it was also
It was the worst of times.
It was the worst of times. It was also the worst of times.
Also pretty great, pretty lit, but there were also some pretty lit heresies, and by lit I mean fire worthy.
It was lit in multiple senses.
It was lit, and so were they.
No, too soon.
It's been 2,000 years.
It's been 2,000.
Your Honor, it has been 2,000 years.
I was going in the quotes thread.
What I love about this is that this is going to be on, it's recorded, so people will just hear us go from coherent to mildly to drastically chaotic.
So is this way the whole
When do
time?
you draw the line? It's like when do we stop? We have officially and incidentally been recording for 3 hours.
That's true.
All right, kids. I am worn out, and I think I am going to take my leave. It has been most excellent.
It has
So
been
long.
really real.
I must
Good night.
bid y'all adieu. Good night.
Nice listening in
Oh, that's
for like
Good night.
10 minutes.
Sleep
Good
tight.
night.
Good night.
Good night.
It's been marvelous. Good night, you guys.
Good night, Autumn.
Good night. Whew.
I'm currently trying to find where my old profile picture went, so that's why I'm not talking right now. I can't find myself.
This is my profile picture.
I love it.
Lizzy, we will do our best to make this happen.
Oh, that sounds like a threat.
Those of us who outlive you.
Oh,
Yeah, we have the expectation that we will outlive our friends.
that is.
Except that would be so sad.
Yep. It's like that
Ooh.
it's that meme of that one character from the regular show. It's like he's hanging out with all his friends, and then one by one the characters you just see like tombstones until he's the last one left.
Ah,
What was that like really terrible satire book that was floating around Target for a while? Was that like All My Friends Are Dead?
I have no idea.
this is new to me.
It was like there was a picture of a tree, and then he was like, "All my friends are dead," and then the next few pages are like pieces of wooden furniture that his friends have been turned into.
That is horrifying. Also, oddly close to a new
Hilarious.
story idea that I had, so that's weird.
So we just passed the 3-hour mark exactly 1 minute ago.
Oh gosh!
Yep.
Congratulations, everybody.
Yay.
Happy New
The
Year's!
longest author talk, where we only talked about author things for like a good hour of it.
Lizzy, what were the other questions you had?
What were they? That's a great question. I've slept since then. What? Okay, last author question. What are the the small details that you like to add to your work? For me, it's like folk songs, or like highly specific backstories. Like I told you at the at Poiemauthors, I like just really delving into specific stories that interest me within that grand story.
Yeah.
Which was the thing about the stars.
Yeah, everything you told me at Poema, like I still think about that from time to time, especially like how you were building out the constellations. Just blew my mind.
I will need a 3,000 word essay sent directly to my desk in the morning about what these constellations are. I need to know about this.
One of the things that I was trying to do for a kingdom that I was building for LARP was okay. So I as a person, I love looking up at the stars, but if I was in a fantasy world, I wouldn't see the same stars. So what stories and what mythos would surround the stars that my characters see? Do they have a specific star that they navigate by? Are there constellations that are important to them through myth? Just like kind of the details that surround the parts of the world that we very much take for granted, like the sky.
No, dude, I think you were entirely correct with that. I love when stories have their own constellations. I think that is amazing. Like for normal like world building things, but also I absolutely am enamored with the night sky. And if I were to go to your magical fantasy world and I would be able to look up the stars and still see things I recognize even though I've never seen them before, oh my gosh, that feeling is just so cool to think about.
That's the
one. What?
That's the world where I kind of picked up the geography of East Tennessee and kind of like threw it out a fantasy map. And the stars aren't. I
I found them in a specific location because they weren't like actually stars that I saw in the sky. I was looking out off the top of a mountain in the mist at night, and I noticed that there were lights, like all around. And I thought, what if those are stars? Like, what constellations can I make with the lights that I see on the ground? And that was kind of where that idea came from.
Lizzy, I also really love or have been getting more into putting folk songs in my world that I'm currently building out. How do you go about writing those?
For the few that I've written, I wrote them for the kingdoms of friends who I was basing stories in. So I took some of their history and some of their geography and the religion that they had already built in their world building, and I just kind of went from there.
That's really fun.
And then you take like the tropes or some of the stories that people typically use in folk songs about like a certain place, like that's my motherland or my fatherland. And speaking of that, if Russia is the motherland and Germany is the fatherland, then was World War II like a giant horse?
Characters' childhoods. Like it goes into like the it might relate to the backstory stuff that you were talking about, Lizzy. But like characters having something in their childhood that matters. Like all things in childhood matter. But having it be related to the story is so fun and juicy. There's in Robbing Centers. No, it's not technically in the first book. Sorry, it's in the second book. But Archer's family is super important in the second book. And specifically, there's this thing in the Seraph community where there's this drink called Fruitelkin. And it's made of like fruits and spices and hot milk, and it's like the childhood comfort drink, right? But every family has their own way of making it. They all have their own recipe, and it's passed down. And like Archer is so separated from the other Seraphs. Like he's almost like an other kind of being, is the way he sees himself as opposed to the other Seraphs. But he is absolutely obsessed with the Fruitelkin. And that's an idea that was rattling around in my head, since like forever. I was like, I need this to be a thing. And it actually took a really long time for me to figure out why it was thematically important. But yeah, like having details from characters' childhood and why they're important and why they've lasted into their adulthood is so extremely fun.
That is awesome.
I love the relating food to, like, man, that makes me so happy.
I like giving characters a very specific passion that they have that ties into their character and how they teach other characters.
Wait, they teach the other characters.
They teach other characters through that passion. Yeah.
Ooh.
What would be an
That's
example
cool.
of that?
So, in my current project, you have the two main characters. So it's a mentor apprentice relationship, and it's a man and a woman. However, the guy has an insufficient view of leadership. So the apprentice, the lady, is really into dance, and what she does, she uses that and teaches them how leadership works through dance, and then that enables him to understand better how to be a better leader.
Okay.
That
So
is really
that-
neat.
yeah, that kind of using the passion of a character to teach another character.
Also, like handling a abstract concept in fiction, an abstract concept being later shipped through a visual concept like dance.
Exactly.
I eat that up every time.
Wow, did we all just simultaneously fall asleep?
On my feet, yes.
No, but I am tired.
I think I'm going to have to get going now.
Do we want to wrap up?
I feel like we should end with a song.
Ooh.
Doxology? Perchance?
That wasn't what I was thinking, but I
Oh,
was
okay.
more thinking of like the parting glass. But yes.
We'll have Lizzy perform for us.
Ooh, I vote for that.
Lizzy, 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 Lizzy.
Come on, Bard.
Oh gosh.
Show forth your bardliness.
Maybe we should just go with the doxology.
I can get behind that.
Elijah, would you start us off?
Okay. Praise God from whom all blessings flow. Praise Him, all creatures here below. Praise Him above, ye heavenly hosts. Praise Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. Amen.
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 Nice. I had to
Well, we
take out
really
my.
Delightful.
I had to take out my earbud there for a second because
We're told to make a joyful noise.
their
not
voices
always
were
a
messing me
musical
up. Okay.
But to be fair,
Here's what I'm
individually, all of you sound wonderful.
All right, I'm going to part from you all now. Lizzy, thanks so much
Good
for putting
luck.
this together.
Of course, we should do this again
All right, y'all
sometime
have-
soon.
Yes, this will be super fun. I'm glad I was able to listen in and talk at least a little bit. So, and I loved hearing everybody's thoughts. Y'all have a really good night.
You
And
too.
Elijah, happy birthday.
Thank you.
Good night,
Good
guys.
night.